the bechina, God willing. So my first issue, and the only real issue, I found this printout before Shabbos 2 weeks ago, and I printed it out from Rod before Shabbos came in. I gave myself a little homework assignment, and I really had a good time looking up these things. And I said to myself, I'm telling you my headspace, so that way you know what I'm thinking, and you know what you should be thinking when you critically analyze any piece of Torah. Right? You understand why we have issues now? For critically analyzing text of Torah. Anytime you critically analyze text of Torah, you should be thinking about issues, problems, pshat, what is the problem, the kasha, all these different things. If you don't know the words I'm saying, I will keep repeating them and you will get it. All right, so my first issue, what I'm saying, and I'm looking at this, I'm saying to myself, why does Rod have this online? What's going on? Who translated this? I got issues, right? You hear my issues? What is this? Why did Rod put this up? Where did it come from? Who translated it? Is it accurate? Did Rod get false information? Right? I want to know. Just because I'm trained to think that. If you talk to a lawyer, they'll say, who hit you? How much money? Right? Everyone's got their critical mind. So I looked it up, and Russell and I were talking about this word, sophistication. That was just in our passing conversation. We were talking about being sophisticated. Just regular conversation. And if you notice, look through, and like the first sentence of number 2, you guys see that big word there? Sophisticated. Right? And I was saying, wow, that's interesting. Rod's on to sophistication. We're all onto it. Maybe there's something to this. So I read through it, and I want to say my first question, and you should know this after last night. Betty, what's my first question going to be? What's the Hebrew? What's the Hebrew? Right? When Rod's saying sophisticated, I'm saying, come on, Rod, tell me what it really means. So I looked it up, and I find it, and I'm saying, okay, we're going to get into it. And I'm saying, no, that's okay. This is a really interesting piece of Torah. I want to drop my issues. I'm saying, let's just drop the issues, and let's see what Rebbe Nachman's saying, because apparently Rod's onto something, and my radar went off, and I'm thinking this is a pretty good piece of Torah. Okay. Now, we're going to start in a second. I want to just give the real intro here. This book I mentioned last night, this is I wouldn't call it a fantastic book because I haven't read it. I don't know. But I do know one thing. This was written by my very close personal friend, Rabbi Yaakov Gable. He translated it into English from Hebrew, from the Breslov, I guess, Institute or whatever it is. I was a young student in yeshiva, and I got out of the beginner's class. I went into the intermediate class. They put me with Rabbi Gable, and he was an unassuming guy, real quiet, modest guy. He was the Breslover in the yeshiva, in the kollel, and all I knew was he was a genius, and he had a master's in classics from the University, I think, of Chicago. Right, so that's Latin and Greek, and that's, anyone that knows their Bible studies, Latin and Greek is where it's at in the non-Jewish world, and in the academic world, scholarly world, it's the same thing. So my background in Talmud, I accredit strictly to this guy. He was my main influence of how to learn. I was with him the most out of all my Rebbes over the years. I was with Gable the most. I ate at his house on Shabbos a lot. We're very close. And only when you get older and you look back in your life and reflect, you say, why am I teaching non-Jews Torah? And why do I learn this way? And why do I care about Ger and what it means? And Onkelos? Who learns Onkelos? And you realize Rabbi Gable, that was the guy. So he's the guy. This is the abridged Likutei Moharan. And as I got into my Ger studies, everyone knows Ger, right? And we collect sources, and that's just what I do for fun, or a hobby, or a profession, whatever you want to say. It always strengthens the position. Now, Rebbe Nachman, this is called the Tinyana, part 2 of Likutei Moharan. In this book, the Likutei Moharan, there's a lot of Ger references in this book. I consider Rebbe Nachman one of the top 5 all-time Ger guys. All right? Some people just really got it. Lubavitcher Rebbe, surprise, surprise, got it. Rebbe Nachman got it. Meir Kahan, we'll find out on Thursday, got it. Chavetz Chaim got it. We'll say all the Rishonim got it. Just in case, and we'll call that my top 5 on the spot. Rebbe Nachman's definitely a top 5 guy. And very rarely does Rebbe Nachman's ger equal convert? All right? Think about that for 1 second, yeah? Very rarely, if even ever. Now, that doesn't mean it's a this or a that. In Hebrew, there's something called miut and riboy. Don't worry about what it means. It's Talmudic code. It doesn't really have to come with a definition. Okay? It's like Nintendo. It doesn't mean anything. It does mean something, but for all intents and purposes, it doesn't. Miut means this or that. Riboy means both. Right? Either I'm sitting in front of Betty or Betty's sitting in front of me. Right? If we look at it that way, it's a miut, right? It's either me or her. Well, how about if we're both in the same room? Now it's a riboy. Okay? So ger is convert, ger is non-Jew. Well, which one is it? Maybe it's both. And guess what? 99% of the time, it's both. So what's my issue? My issue is when we don't say it's both, you make it a this or a that, and you don't have the liberty or right to do that. The Torah doesn't work that way. Rebbe Nachman is bringing ger. Sometimes it's the riboy of the convert, but a lot of times he's bringing just the non-Jew. And yes, I'm saying it's a miut, it's a this or a that. He's bringing the non-Jew explicitly. That's why he's one of my top 5 guys. Because there are times where it is a miut. Sometimes it is a convert and not a non-Jew. Sometimes in Parshas Ross, we give the meat to the non-Jew, don't we? And that cannot be a convert unless the convert's eating treif. Not going to happen, I don't think. Okay, so I'm getting into Rebbe Nachman, I'm liking it, and I'm jumping up and down with Simcha, and I'm nanach. All right, I'm getting into it, I like it. But in all honesty, the Breslov crowd, as I research it, they're teaching it's convert every single time. Now, I'm all good with Breslov and Chabad and everybody, but I get a little funny when you tell me ger's convert. I get a little funny. When Art Scroll does it and all our friends do it, I tend to get a little funny. So I realized very quickly that I'm the only guy on the planet Earth teaching Rebbe Nachman ger doesn't always have to be convert. Right? Then I found I was wrong. I'm not the only guy on the planet that teaches it. My good friend Rabbi Gable, and that's always the case. I'm never the only guy. I just say that for wow factor. There's always somebody else. But again, I'm the only one with the megaphone. Rabbi Gable is not going to get on YouTube and teach this because he's a quiet guy. He's just not teaching anything on a megaphone. He writes books, and they're nice books. Maybe afterwards we'll look and compare the text for a critical analysis. But I called him up. I said, Rabbi Gable, where do we find Rebbe Nachman ger non-Jew? He said in the Tanyana, chapter 5, parts 4 and 5. Ger b'koach, ger b'poel. What is ger b'koach? What is ger b'poel? We're not going to do that Torah tonight, but to reference it, because it is a reference, it's in the same chapter 5, but we're on 15, and he's back in 4 and 5. So ger b'koach, when basically a lot of spiritual things happen, again, we can go inside one day, God willing, we make a ger b'koach. He stops his avodah zarah, his idolatry, and he comes to a certain extent to what's called Dat Yisrael, or Amunat Yisrael. How many people know Amunah? One, hey, everybody, hey, Amunah. When that happens, he's now called a ger. He left idolatry, and he is serving the Lord. Now there's something called ger b'poel. He is a convert. He's going all the way. He's taking it all the way. All right, ger b'koach, he comes to where he's a ger b'poel, he's a Jew. Why? One feels they are a Jew, one feels not a need to be a Jew. That's from the mouth of Rabbi Gable, the author from the Breslov, blah, 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 da-da-da-dee. I think that's pretty much an authoritative source. Can't we say that? Okay, and he taught me how to learn it, so I guess maybe I know a little bit if I didn't receive from my instructor the way I happen to think that I did. I still have a relationship with him today. If I was teaching things that he didn't write or teach, that would probably be a little awkward for him, so that's not the case. Now you have your printouts. It's a little bit of a complicated thing I'm asking of you. All right, you got your 1s and 2s. Keep that in mind. Follow along in chapter numeric 2, and you're going to have issues, right? We always have issues. Your issue is going to be, why does this text not even come remotely near to matching this text? I find that to be a big issue. Because Rod's a nice guy. I like Rod, everybody. Everyone likes Rod. Rod has a nice website, nice Torah on his website, Baruch Hashem for Rod. But his text that he got is severely lacking. Now, this is where Rod says, why does Rabbi Katz create issues? That's what I do. Because it's an issue. It is an issue. And none of you knew that this issue existed. So yes, I'm coming and creating problems and issues. Because I think it's an issue. It's a long Torah. It goes over a full 2 pages in my book, in little itty-bitty print. And we got this. So what is the real issue at hand here? I want to learn. Don't you guys want to learn? And how are we going to learn when we think, when there's no issues? I got Rebbe Nachman, everybody. I don't need you or you or you. I got it. I don't need your books. I don't need your teachers. I got Rod in English, and I'm happy about that. The only problem is, not only is it missing, call it 60% of the text, we're going to find out how good the English corresponds to the Hebrew. But not only that, this is translated by a rabbi online, so I'll give him some slack. Betty's going to read the standard Breslov material in English on this, and anyone that follows my temple class on YouTube, this is a trick I like to do on everything, because I'm a prescriptivist in language. I like the original story. I want to get from the Torah itself. I don't want Torah secondhand. Can I get a 2 or a 1 on that? How do you guys feel? 1 or 2? Do you want Torah real, or do you want it secondhand and regurgitated, half-baked? Yeah? So I'm with you. I want the real McCoy. I want the real thing. So we're going to do a little experiment. And I wrote notes just kind of for insights that I got from the Hebrew. And we want to learn, we want to know, who's Rebbe Nachman really? Rabbi Rebbe Nachman. Just like there's no such thing as Moshe Rabbeinu. Guy never lived. He's called Moshe Navienu. Moshe our prophet. I'm not interested in Moses the rabbi. I want to know Moses our prophet. Don't you guys want to know that too? So I want to know Rabbi Nachman the rabbi. Because rabbis are good people. And he wrote a nice book with a lot of good Torah, meaning he's a rabbi, okay? The sources he's bringing are the same ones that he brought, and he brought, and he brought, and he brought, right? There's not some kind of mystical code, hocus pocus. It's the same sources. You say, well, how do you know that? Well, I'm happy to be a rabbi, and I can see the sources, and I looked them up. And that's what we're going to teach you guys, to get strong in your character and heart and mind and emunah, to not be afraid, to look it up, and you'll see he's a rabbi. Now, he happens to be a great rabbi. These are really profound ideas. That's why I was willing to drop my issues and just go into text. You'll see there's no issue. He gets it. He gets it hardcore. This is one of the most fantastic pieces I've ever learned. I mean, it's a tragedy that I'm probably not going to be able to share all the notes. It's that good. That's why I'm saying if you have the stamina, we really should do it. It's pretty amazing. Which is why we find issues when it's not only lacking here and lacking there, but I'm telling you, it's not even going to be close. It's not even going to be close. In fact, if you want to be real technical, it's a Chil Hashem. Now, I'm not going to call this particular thing a Chil Hashem, because I know that who translated this did his best. I know that guy did his best. But I've got books where you're going to be pretty upset when you see the corruption. Really bad. Maybe not malicious, but when you find out how bad you're ripped off in the English, and I'm going to tell you on record, there's not a single English book you've ever read that got it right. And on one hand, you can say, who cares? Okay, who cares, right? But on one hand, that burning question, what does it really say? What does it really say? And that's where the power is. That's where the emunah is. That's where your strength is. You can convince yourselves that this will make you strong, but you're not strong with this. And I'll just give a quick plug. Our online yeshiva is up. And pay attention to that word yeshiva. It's going to come up in the learning. And we call the yeshiva getsoulstrong.com. Right? So strength is what I'm about. We want to be strong. And the only way you're strong is if you get it from the source. Just like in materialism, right? You can't get a rip-off of something. The copy of the copy is not the real thing. You got to get it from the source. Betty, if you can start us off. All right, go real slow. We're part 2, chapter 5, part 15. It's a Torah. You'll see what it's about very quickly. Well, actually, before you start, I want to just get a run-on. He starts with a run-on sentence. And I had to look up the previous Torah. Everyone knows Rebbe Nachman, Rosh Hashanah, correct? 1, 1, 2, hey, everybody, hey, 1, 1, hey. The holidays, especially Rosh Hashanah, the holidays are littered with emunah. just because they are. And when you go through the holidays, and particularly Rosh Hashanah, says Rebbe Nachman, the power of the Rosh, the head, you will perfect your emunah through Moed. Moed is Hebrew for the holiday observances, which is why in my Ger research, Moed Shabbos is not just a nice thing, it's crucial, it's there, and to say it's not there is again, an issue-driven, issue-driven source. Because everybody wants to keep Shabbos away from the non-Jew. And I mean everybody. And I'm here to tell you, it is 100% part of the non-Jewish world. Shabbos and the holidays. So, those are issues. And I'm here to resolve those issues. Rebbe Nachman's going to say, what about getting emunah not only from the holidays? We don't have a holiday every day. Not every day is a holiday. Although in Judaism it's almost every other day it's a holiday. But not every day. So Betty, if you can take us off based on that, Rebbe Nachman's going to tell us how we can get emunah non-holiday. Is there another way, Rabbi, that I can grow in perfect emunah? Go ahead, Betty. Everyone listen up to Betty.
And this is conceptually related to a teacher with disciples.
Okay. Zeh bechinas Rebbe im talmidim. And this is the aspect of a rabbi or a rebbe with his disciples or students. Not exactly the same, is it? Now, I'm being a little nitpicky there, but seriously, you can't say it's the same. What's wrong with just saying, and this is the aspect of a rebbe with his students? It would tell you the whole story. Keep going. By the way, this is called syntax. Yes. Torah cannot be written with syntax. That's like how you lose the Greek mind overnight. It's just syntax might be good for your English paper. It's not good for Torah. And then we're going to keep proving that point. Go ahead.
A true teacher with his disciples.
When there is a rebbe, a true rebbe with his students. Way to go. He did good there. We'll give him a thumbs up. Go ahead.
A true teacher with his disciples brings to and rectifies all the concepts mentioned previously.
And through this will make and fix or repair or establish also all the aspects mentioned above.
When disciples gather round the teacher, the facets of faith are gathered together and collected.
And therefore, when the students are collected by the rabbi, the Rav, through that we collect and really like put together the parts of emunah.
This is the reason the studying of a teacher with disciples is called yeshiva.
And therefore, it is called this study with the Rav, with the students, yeshiva. Now, ready to have the shock of a lifetime, guys? Go keep going. It's going to come out.
On account of the gathering together of the facets of faith.
Why do we call it yeshiva and this and that? On the name, al shem, like on the concept of the gathering the portions or parts of emunah.
This is the concept of a land, no Shabbat.
This is the aspect of Eretz no Shevet. That's a quote of the verse from Exodus 16. Go ahead.
As in, dwelt in the land and tend to faith.
All right, here that's he did a perfect translation from Tehillim 37.
The opposite of an unsown land.
And a direct translation from Jeremiah 2.
Which alludes to a blemish of faith.
Which is the aspect of a blemish in emunah, as mentioned.
So the teacher supervises each one's facets of faith.
When the Rav, since the Rav, he is the mashgiach. Mashgiach is really, don't translate that word. This is one of those words that you don't translate. Anybody know what a mashgiach is? No, not overseas. When I have a kosher coffee house, okay, I have Jews there that don't know from borscht. So how do I know, me, the Orthodox Jew, if the milk is kosher or not when I go in there? Twice a week, Rabbi Smilowitz goes in, he's certified through the Heckscher, the label organization, and he looks around, inspects, and he makes sure no improper ingredients come into the cafe. That's called a mashgiach. Rod is your mashgiach. Nothing treif can come in here because Rod won't let it in. Rod makes it his business to know what's treif and what's not treif, what is not suitable for here. So if there's a new blend of Judaism that comes up, and it may, I don't know, everyone's talking about this thing, and they got this leader that could be the Messiah or something, Rod's antennas are going to go up, and he's going to sniff it out if it really is legit. And he did it with me. Is ger kosher? That's an issue, right? It was an issue. It still is an issue. We don't want to think it is. Rod sniffed it out. We talked, and here I am. So I guess either I'm fooling him or he's fooling me, one or the other. So go ahead, Betty.
Okay. So the teacher supervises each one's classes of faith, gathering and
Wait, so for now on, I want you to no longer use the word faith, because that's a bad word. It's a muna, right? Don't we agree with that? Faith is a bad word here. It's a muna, right? All your teachers coming in here calling it a muna. Rav Dror called it a muna a billion times. Don't trick your mind, all right? Faith, I don't know what faith is, but we all know what a muna is. So just allow yourself to really get into words that you have a right to know. And ger, by the way, is just another intranslatable word. It really isn't a word. What is a ger? It's an issue because they make an issue in the translation. Just don't translate it. It's like the. It's like is. All right? And it just kind of, it's this, it really, I like to compare a ger to a muna. You don't have to translate a muna. We know what it is. Ger, we know what it is. And there's a lot of other words that we just know what they are. And it becomes an expressive tool rather than, what is that? How do you define it? It's just a way of expression that we know what we mean. And once you start getting into it more than that, it's like explaining a joke that no one laughed at. No, not necessary. So go. From now on, faith is a muna. Go ahead.
Okay, what is faithful then? The ones who have a muna?
Faithful is amana.
Amana?
Amana.
Amana.
Like a covenant of faith is loyal or faithful is amana. Yeah, yeah. But it doesn't appear in the Hebrew, so you shouldn't even be saying faithful.
Well, that's what you want me to read the English.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting point to see why he says faithful. When you get to those kind of words, tell me, and I'll tell you what it's going on.
Okay. Here we go. Faithful.
Right.
My eyes are upon the faithful of the land.
See, there it is. That's not amuna. See, it's b'ne emani. So from the root of amana. See that? Very good.
My eyes are upon the Amani,
Yeah.
the land, Lashevet, that they should dwell with me. Lashevet with me alludes to yeshiva.
So I don't like these little transition words he's doing. Alludes to. That's one of these real slick things that you're not going to get because it's not necessary. The word is bechinat. Now, why am I making a fuss over that? Because one of Rebbe Nachman, one of his top 3 things that he has, amuna and something else, whatever it may be, and bechina. Everything is a bechina, Rebbe Nachman. You don't get Rebbe Nachman unless you know the word bechina. I'm telling everywhere. I'll pick a random page. Ready? Random page. Let's see if we find the word bechina. There it is, right there. And this garment with intelligence below, and this is the bechina of. Okay, it's everywhere. It's every other word, and it's a major Torah word. This is bechina of thirst. This is a bechina of Torah. This is a bechina of a student of Torah. This is a bechina of a synagogue. Okay, you get what bechina is now? Aspects. What did you say it was again? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Right? Just no, it isn't. It isn't.
Okay.
So because the difference is in syntax world, it is alluded to. Because we have rules in syntax. We have to make up new words every time, otherwise it's, and then I went there, and then I went there, and then I did that, and then I did that. And we don't want to hear that. But your mind is not Greek or in syntax land. Your mind is saying, then I went to the store, then I went home, then I went to the room, then I went to, that's what you're saying. You might not have the guts to write it that way in your essay, but you're thinking it. So in the Hebrew, you're saying, you might, again, you're not aware of the Hebrew word, but in your consciousness, you're saying, oh, so his teacher was a bechina of Breslov Hasidus, or, oh, so that's what you're saying. And he's just mapping out what you're saying. Now, you might have a different word in your English in your mind, but when you elevate in Torah, you will have realized you were saying bechina. When you start taking notes in your own language, you'll just start writing, oh, it's the bechina of. Right? It's a major word. It's like the consciousness of Rebbe Nachman. So I don't expect you to get it every time when you read it, but just I'm gonna introduce it. So go ahead.
Okay, so rather than alludes, we say it's an aspect of.
Yeah, an aspect of yeshiva.
Of yeshiva.
Yeah.
A land, no Shabbat.
No, a bechina of a land, no shevet. No, he didn't have it there. I'm saying he was here.
Right.
See the corruption? I'm not blaming anybody. It's just a natural corruption. It's like telephone. You tell him, he tells him. In the end, does it ever get back the right way? No. So do we blame the guy next to you? Why didn't you tell me that's what it was? No, but no one does that. Okay, it said bechina here. You didn't have it in there. Why? I'm proverbially asking, why? Why? Why do you have the authority to leave it out? I'm saying maybe they want to know what it is.
Well, that's a good question.
It is a good question. Right? And these are what I call my issues. And there's non-stop issues. I find them to be problematic because the more you realize how important those words like bechina are, then it begs the question, why not? And then you start to see it's in all the books. Then you start to say the big why not? And you start to see it's not a personal attack. It's not an agenda. It's really, you start to get into spiritual warfare with what is God doing in creation and the other side and spiritual warfare and prayer warriors and all these things. It comes to life now. You know? You're fighting just Matrix reality type stuff. I mean, there's no pointing a finger at anybody. It's too big to point a finger. But it's where real emunah comes in. Go ahead.
Digging for the treasure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. When you realize bechina is a treasure, and it is. Words like that. Keep going.
This is why those who convert.
Oh, really?
I knew you were going to.
Really? Our convert. We found our convert here. Thank God. Bless the hearts of the converts, right? And Rebbe Nachman. Okay.
No, I'm not scared. I'm just laughing.
Yeah, so without me interrupting, read the whole. I want you to think, okay? We just got done saying all the things above. And I'm saying that generally on purpose. Just take a second and think about all the things we said. The rabbi, the students, the yeshiva, okay? Now, Betty, go real slow and do use the word gerim instead, okay? Instead of converts. Yeah, don't ever say converts again in here because he does not talk about converts here. But go ahead and read the real slow and think about what he's saying. Go ahead.
This is why the ger, as a result of the gathering of faith, as explained, the gathering of emunah, as explained previously, are identified with yeshiva.
So Rabbi Katz is starting the world's first ger yeshiva online called getsoulstrong.com, and he happens to teach ger. Did I make that up? I just, I made up this thing. I got these people ger, and I got this yeshiva. Maybe a couple hundred years ago, Rabbi Nachman already had it figured out. And I didn't even know this existed until I printed it off of Rod's site and I checked it out. I thought I had all Rabbi Nachman's ger mapped out from the index. They left this one out of the index. Wasn't even there. So I'm saying okay, Rod, what do you got going on here? And I'm like, hey, how you doing? ger yeshiva, okay. So it was a mind blower because, I'm saying I think I got a pretty good thing going on with my ger yeshiva. But little did I know, and he's saying this is like the whole deal. Like this is what emunah is. It's what a Rebbe is. It's what all these things are, and it's about making ger yeshiva. Okay, I subscribe. Go ahead.
Okay.
Get ready, Ross. This is for you. Get ready. Get ready.
As it is written, he saw the Kenites.
Who?
The Kenites.
Are they Jews? Converts? Who are they?
They're Kenites.
Who are the Kenites? Who are they? Does anybody know what a Kenite is outside of Ross Bearden? Why is Rebbe Nachman bringing a Kenite of all people?
Because, Caleb,
No, Kenazite. How many of you guys are here of the world champion ger called Jethro? You're here, Jethro?
Yep.
How many of you guys are here of Bilam and Balak? Now there's it's always a question. Did Bilam bless or curse? I never figured that one out. Because everyone says it's a curse, but in the end, how do you say that? So I don't know. Whatever he did, I forget where it's at in chapter 25 or something. He says, oh man, I got to say the verse. Hold on, I can't not do it, Russell. I can't not do it. It's right here. Actually, just read. So they saw the Kenites and said, Eitan Moshevech. Okay, so they saw the Kenites. So Bill and Balak were there. Jethro was a reincarnation of Cain. That's like one of those Kabbalistic facts that even the Mishnah have to admit. It's like a thing. It's a known thing. Because of this verse. We know it's talking about Jethro and in the Kenite from the word Cain. Jethro left and went back to his people. Now, this is one of the things that I'm going to be teaching on Thursday. I'll go ahead and say it now. If Jethro was a convert, he's a pretty dodgy Jew, isn't he? For leaving the Jews? I mean, what's he doing there? So we know for a fact that Jethro is a ger. This is fact. I mean, in the ger sources, it's as clear as day. But Meir Kahan has a really interesting take on it. And I'm going to keep this real concise. If you want to hear more about it, then show up to the conference on Thursday. You won't regret it. The ger Toshav in the land of Israel, like the conquered one, like we go into Syria and we called out the peace and they rejected it and we conquered them and we brought them back to Israel to build our patios. Because that's what we do. So those conquered Syrians are called ger Toshav. Not the same ger Toshav that I'm saying our friend the ger Toshav. What it turns out is there's many types of ger Toshav. And this is the confusion we're talking about. Why are there more than one ger Toshav? I don't know. Ask Rashi. I really don't know why they did it, okay? There's like 10 billion kinds of ger Toshav. And yes, Rabbi Katz went and figured out all 10 billion kinds of ger Toshav. $20, $28, whatever, word of the ger. So Jethro says, I'm ger, good guy. I'm a good guy ger. And if I go to Israel, where another week or two, Joshua is getting ready to clean house. Right? He's going to be a wartime Jew making conquered Canaanite idolaters in a ger Toshav. Right? The conquered ger is the 7 nations, and trust me, you don't want to be related to them anyways. They're the idolaters of idolaters. And they have to be conquered. And that's what Meir Kahan, when you hear Meir Kahan saying the Goyim, he's talking Canaanites. He's not talking Texas. He's talking Canaanites. So they need to be killed or whatever, made in the ger Toshav, subordinated. All right, it's a whole different deal. We're going to get into that on Thursday. So what do you think Jethro says? If I go to Israel with Joshua, they're going to think I'm one of those guys. Because I'm saying, hey, everybody, my name is ger Toshav. I better get out of here. So he goes, and he remains a ger Toshav where it's safe and no one's going to persecute him. How many of you guys are here? Naaman the ger Toshav. Why did he leave? Wasn't it a wartime he was in? If he sticks around, he's going to get killed. So what does he do? He leaves. Beautiful answer, isn't it? So Rebbe Nachman's quoting this. The offspring of Jethro were called the Kenites, some of the most famous gerim of all time. And that knowledge was brought out individually, single-handedly by our friend Ross Bearden over here. We worked on it for a long time. I mean, he is the guy that dug it out. Don't think it was anybody else. And they had offspring named the Rechabites. I mean, they are the Kennedys of all gerim. They are the class. They have a covenant with God that the Midrash says is a greater covenant than the covenant with Israel. You cop that? I mean, we're talking, this is real stuff. Because the Midrash says the covenant with Israel is contingent in exile versus redemption. The Rechabite covenant is never not. Always is. I mean, these were the real McCoy. So, that's what we're saying here. Now, why does Rebbe Nachman bring them in? Just back up, Betty, and take us again. and therefore we call it on the name of yeshiva, and then just keep going.
All right. In the name of yeshiva, as it is written, he saw the Kenite and said,
Eitan Moshavecha. Right, so because it says the same cognate of yeshiva with Jethro or with the Kenites, we know that the cognate is yeshiva, but it's not going to work unless we got Gerim to go with our yeshiva. And guess what, boys and girls? If it's convert, it doesn't work. Because we were talking Gerim, now all of a sudden it's convert? So it just doesn't work. So what is he saying? He's not only saying Ger Yeshiva, he's saying, I'll prove it to you from Bilam Balak and Jethro and the Kenites. There's a school of Gerim in their yeshiva. Go ahead.
Eitan Moshavecha, secure is your dwelling.
Yeah.
And this is the meaning of Eitan. Tanya, that supports you. Right.
The word Eitan, which means strong, and they say that it's a reference to Abraham, which the Or Chaim commentator on that verse says that Abraham was the first Ger Tzedek, not a Jew. And Eitan's the same letters as Tanya. I'm sure you can make a Chabad, whatever there. I'm sure they have done that. That's Pshat. That's what it is. Eitan is the same letters as Tanya, and that's what he's talking about. But that's not the scope of this, so continue.
Tanya, that supports you as it's brought in to Kuning Zohar.
Yep, keep going.
Yeshiva study is support for Gerim because the concept of yeshiva brings them to become Gerim.
This is one of the Nit Gairin, to become Ger. Nit Gairin, to become Ger. And here's where I go into my issue mode. Every rabbi on earth will tell you to lit gayer obviously means to become a convert. Well, my friend, I guess you didn't read the Rashba, did you? All Lashon, all language, lit gayer can be ksat geris or geris. It can either be I became a convert from Nachri, or it could be I became a ger from Nachri. Nachri is what you call a non-Israelite. Anybody who's a non-Israelite, we call him in the Torah a Nachri. In Parshas Rei, I, the Jew, have meat that's treif, because it happened, and I can't eat it. I can give it to my friend the ger, or I can sell it to my other friend, not so close friend, the Nachri. So what's the difference? If I give it to the Nachri, I just perverted the Torah. I just gave the ger meat to the Nachri. That's called an Aveira. I did a sin. I'm not allowed to give a free gift to a Nachri. So you say, wow, Rabbi Katz, why do you make such a big issue on Gerim? Because if we give meat, even a halacha today, as it's written in the Shulchan Aruch, if I do this, I just gave a gift to a Nachri. That's a no-no. And it's a big no-no. Not to even mention that we're stepping on the toes of the whole Ger thing. So then, a Nachri that learns Torah is like a Kohen Gadol. We know that expression. Why? Because until he converts, he's a Nachri. Until he converts, he's a Nachri. If he gets to the end of conversion and he doesn't want to go through with it, remember this discussion with our friend Kosher Matzah over there? He would say, hey, just kidding, Rabbi, I want to remain a Ger Toshav now since I didn't convert. No, you cheated. You told me you were going to convert. You didn't. Go back to being a Nachri. There's another version. A Ger that learns Torah is like a Kohen Gadol. Why? He said, look, I'm really not going to convert. I'm now no longer a Nachri. I, Bob Jones, am a Ger. And the Brisker Rav says he's a Ger. He's now not a Nachri. I have to give him my meat, not sell it to him. He's not a Goy. He's not an idolater. He is not a Noahite. He's not a Ben Noach. He's not a Jew. He's a Ger. And it comes with a whole set of merits. It's a whole different world. We called that process Lehit Gayer. He became Ger. The convert also became Ger. So is it a this or that? No, it's a reboy. It can be both. Just which kind of Ger did you become? There's Ger Gamor, a total Ger. I geared all the way to gefilte fish. There's another Ger called a Ger. Ger Toshav, whatever you want to, some call it just Ger. In halakhic terms, it's called ksat gerus. He's a partial ger. That's a halakhic term. It doesn't mean he's a half level. It just means I took, like we said, Rebbe Nachman did it perfectly, ger b'koach, ger b'poil. Some go until here. Some say, I want to go till here. I'm sure some of you come to Rod once a week. Some come twice a week. And Rod loves the once a week just as much as the twice a week. No offense to Rod, right? It has nothing to do with how much we like Rod. And nothing to do with it. Some people go here. Some people go here. How many people are going to convert and how many people are going to become ksat gerus by the statistics? Out of the 100% people on the planet that are involved in conversion, 80% will be rejected by Beis Din, 20% will become Jews. So that's great. We got 20% becoming Jewish. Where are the 80% going? I called the biggest rabbi in Israel who does conversions worldwide. I said, hey, my name is Rabbi Katz. What do we do with the 80% that are turned away? They're insincere goyim. What do I care what happens to them? I said, well, when do you care what happens to them? You turn them away. They were learning. He says, what do I care? They're insincere. They didn't convert. So what's the real story? That the 80% are now called goyim and idolaters. They just got done learning, and they wanted to be ger. They were never even told there was ger. They were never told it's an option. So what we're doing to kind of promote our little thing here is that we're saying you don't have to go back to being goy, nachri, whatever you call it. You don't have to be a Noahide. Do your 7, go to heaven. All right? You can't convert because whatever reason, okay? You can't move to Brooklyn, whatever it is. So there's something called ger in the Torah. Rebbe Nachman's your good, close buddy. He's here for you. And there's a lot of rabbis in history who are here for you. A lot of them. And in this generation, there's one. Go figure. But there's more than one. There's one with a megaphone. They are out there. I gave a recording to Rod to listen to the other day, kind of a little shtick I did as an experiment. If you know what to say, you can get it anywhere. It's not even a question. If you say, hey, Rabbi, I just left Jesus yesterday and I feel great. They're going to say, hey. But, that's what I'm saying. By getting the text right, you're going to have a pass to go wherever you need to go in life in terms of religion and spirituality. If you get it wrong, if you go stick with the English, you're always going to be a little bit out. And I'm talking even at the grocery store, right? If you don't take the wisdom of life anywhere, you're going to be a second-class citizen. I'm not talking on a race or level. I'm talking just, if you're going to be dependent, same word, right? Wherever you go, you're second class. If you have wisdom, you become independent. Now we have to treat you different. We have to. So with ger, it's no different. If you want to be dependent, you'll be treated like a dependent. If you want to be independent, getting around Rebbe Nachman and the works, you'll be treated like an independent. And this is what I'm saying my experience in yeshiva was. I see all the boy tshuva being dependent. And they're being, manipulated the same way. Here, read this, don't read that. And I'm saying I made it through. I chose that I don't want to be dependent. I want to be independent. And that's what I teach. How to be independent so that you can be dependent on when you ask a question. But be independent when you ask the question, so you can get it from the source and get to the answer. With that, so we see nit gairin, to become ger. Would you say now it's a small word or big word? It's a massive word. It's like the whole word. I mean, it's the whole story. And again, every rabbi on earth will tell you it means become ger convert because they never learned the Rashba. The Rashba's world, it's so obvious, it doesn't even need to be said. When the Rebbe wrote in his Sikha this kind of stuff, he assumes you knew the Rashba. And today, why they don't, honestly, it's because of World War II. Everyone that knew it got killed in World War II. And when the rabbis went to America, they had to rebuild Judaism on the fly. They really weren't concerned with nidgairin. They were concerned with having a shochet, a moil, and a synagogue, and minyanim starting ASAP. 6 million people just got killed. So then, what you had was, grassroots real quick. Art Scroll came in. Art Scroll wasn't perfect. They don't try to be perfect, but we try to make them perfect. And when we anointed them king, We inherited their kingdom. That's, again, part of life, isn't it? Right? The ownership comes in, takes over. Your product wasn't in their interest. You're not getting your product. Same thing. It's the same principles. The only problem is 7 billion people got affected by that misprint. So it has consequence. Go ahead.
So a teacher with his disciples, that is yeshiva.
You mean bechina yeshiva?
Okay.
I thought you said it was allude to before. Now you said it. What did you say now? What did you say? What was it now?
Now he's using it.
You said how'd you say this now?
It says, though a teacher, through a teacher with his disciples, that is.
Oh, that is.
That is.
So you said before it was alluded to. Now you're saying that is.
It says that is.
Yeah. So which one is it? Alluded to or that is? My point is, it's bechina. He's telling you like it's a punch. He's saying this is that. He's not saying, oh, that alludes to, hey, it's like that. It alludes to. No, he's not. He's not a wimp. He's telling you this is hardcore stuff. Go ahead.
The facets of emunah are gathered together and collected. And so people, what was the word for convert?
Gerim.
Gerim. It follows then that a teacher with his disciples rectifies emunah.
All right, so let me read. He really twisted that. By this, the teacher, the yeshiva, and the students. That is what makes gerim. That's a hardcore statement, isn't it? Rebbe, yeshiva, talmidim makes gerim. Now, I'm not tooting my own horn here, but think about it. I am Rabbi Katz. I am a rabbi. I have students, and I have the world's only yeshiva for non-Jews. He's saying that formula makes gerim. Can you honestly say I'm doing anything else? You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's pretty clear. I'm not making French fries, okay? I mean, it's so clear. Like, that's the formula. We're just running formula. Rebbe, students, yeshiva makes gerim. You know, it's as clear as crystal. That's how it works. And apparently, it's a formula that not only I'm running, Rebbe Nachman ran it, and I'm saying every great rabbi ran this formula. That's why the Rebbe got it. That's why the Chavetz Chaim got it. That's why the Rashba got it. That's why Rashi got it. That's why Rambam got it. It's what always was done. If you just become a rabbi and you get students and you make a real yeshiva. Now, my Rosh Yeshiva was a rabbi. He had students, and obviously I was in yeshiva. Now, I'm not saying he's doing the work that I'm doing, and he doesn't have to. But my yeshiva, I can tell you, is definitely ger-friendly. If Russell showed up at my yeshiva, he would be welcome there. That much I can tell you. 100%. Rabbi Gable would welcome all of you into his class, no doubt. That's not true of every yeshiva in the world. So the formula works. Meaning, not every yeshiva is running a pure yeshiva formula. There's a yeshiva of formula, or a formula of yeshiva. And some people run it, some people don't. How about sports? Some teams are run right, some teams are not run right. Who wins the championship every year? The team run right. So there's not everyone's running a good product. There's such a thing as bad products, and they go under. And there's such a thing as a great product, and it doesn't go under. So the real product makes gerim. Go ahead. Wait. Let me just finish. And that happens by gathering and collecting the aspects and portions of emunah as mentioned. Continue.
Okay. It follows then that a teacher with his disciples rectifies.
No. Nimsa shebechinat emunah. It is found that the bechina of emunah is fixed by a rabbi, a rebbe with students. Continue.
The mind, too, is renewed and rectified. The teacher rectifies and renews the mind of the disciples. And the disciples renew the mind of the teacher. As the sages said, but from my students most of all. I'm
going to be really nitpicky here based on last night. This is one of the things I would have said last night. In the Aleinu prayer, so we're getting Aleinu. Don't think we're not, Rod. We're getting Aleinu here too. One of the words in Elena is kahem. Right? Pay attention. You like this one. Kahem. How would you translate kahem?
Like them.
Like them. And the commentator says it's not. It's a conjunction, kamohem. Just like them. So if I say, hey everybody, I'm from Israel and I'm like you. What if I say, hey everybody, I'm from Israel and I'm just like you? There's a difference. There's a subtle difference. I'm just like you. I'm like you. Like you, it's like you say, hey, how come apples are always overpriced? Oh, I'm just like you. I'm sorry, I'm like you, Betty. When this goes up over $5 an apple, I'm complaining just again. Like you. But if you say, I have a problem, Rabbi Katz, why are apples never found in the wintertime? I'm just like you, Betty. I asked the same question. See, one is kind of, Betty, The other one's like, hey, I know, I'm just like you, I get it. So in the Elenu prayer, I forget exactly the stanza where we said kahem, but the commentator made the point. This is not me being the pity. This was the commentator. Don't say kahem is like them. It was the house of Jacob is, I'll just say, different from the Goyim, the Goyei Haaretz. And he says, we're not like them, or not just like them. So that was a big difference. If the Jew says with the Nachri, I'm like, I'm not like you, or I forget the exact context, but even in different terms, I'm like you, or I'm just like you. Big difference. Go ahead.
Now the main time for gathering is on Rosh Hashanah, which as head corresponds to the rectification of the intellect, as discussed above.
Wait for 1 second. Russell Kirk, that's Mohin. He's talking Mohin right there. It's Mochen. Yeah? So just know, when she says intellects, she's actually telling you it's Mochen.
And each one illuminates and strengthens the other. In other words, all 5 senses of the brain are present also in the teacher with his disciples when they gather together.
Go ahead and read fast, because this part I actually had no problem with in terms of making notes for myself. So for time, just go until we get to... I'll stop you, but when we're done with the senses, just get ready to stop. So go ahead. Yeah, exactly.
The sense of sight parallels seeing the teacher as in your eyes will see your teacher, which is a great thing. Hearing is the concept of he opened their ears to discipline. That is, each one bearing the reproof of the teacher. Smell parallels the exertion and effort each person expends in trekking to reach the teacher. This is synonymous with smell, as in the fragrance, in ape, or nose, and in aho, my wisdom remained with me. Wisdom that became mine through the remained with me. That is, on account of the exertion and effort. For the only way to receive from the teacher is through exertion and effort. This corresponds to the sense of smell.
I want to just comment on that one point. That was actually, I made a note on that point. Read that sentence just one more time slowly and loud for everybody.
For the only way to receive from the teacher is through exertion.
There you go.
And effort.
The only way to receive from a teacher is exertion and effort. Why am I so particular on Ger? Because without exertion and effort, you're just not going to get it. I don't care how simple it sounds. And Ger can be, you can put anything in there, because Ger is just one word of Torah. I'm saying all Torah comes from exertion and effort. What is the ikar of yeshiva? Remember our word ikar from last night, ikar terms? What is the ikar of yeshiva? You would say yeshiva is just a place of learning. No, what's the ikar of yeshiva? What is it? It is a place of toil and work and grit, and it's tough. That's what yeshiva is. It's not a pleasant experience. It's not where you go to have fun, and it's not. It's battle. King David was a king of, what do you call it, a man of war. They say that war that he was a man of was the oral Torah. It's not a pleasant experience. That's why it's not for everybody. But it is for everybody. Because, again, you have to be able to rise up in battle in life. Yeshiva is a training ground for that. So the real question is, how much do you want to be a victim? That's like kind of the proverbial message of life. Because everyone's going to abuse you. How much do you want to not be abused? When you ask me questions at the supermarket, I'm too bothered by you. I'm just going to give you stuff and say, go away. And you're going to get home and realize it's not what you wanted. Now you have a question on your mind. Do you want to live with that? What's your, you went to the restaurant and we got your food order wrong. And you don't want to send it back because it's annoying. Are you going to come back to the restaurant again? At what point are you going to say enough and stand up for yourself? Because everybody's getting ripped off. It's just how this world works. It's an evil world. The world of Asiya. And again, like last night, however much you put in, it's your choice. I'm okay with getting ripped off certain times. Everyone is. Okay? If I'm at the gas station, how much gas? I want 100 shekels. They put in 200. Okay. I really couldn't afford the other 100 shekels. But, by the time I explain it's an American charge card. Why is it American? I'm an American. But you're in Israel. Yes, thank you. I am in Israel. Okay, it's not worth it. I got ripped off. I know now. Don't come back to this gas station, or at least the kid that doesn't look like he knows what he's doing. But sometimes I don't want to get ripped off. Right? If I want to get a computer and I have a certain requirement, I got a computer today. And you guys saw, I checked a million questions. Why? Because last year I got a computer in the same Best Buy and it wasn't what I wanted. I didn't know that I had issues. I'm a rabbi and I have microphone issues and it didn't come with a microphone jack and I didn't know that. So you start to live with how much of a victim do you want to be. Yeshiva is the training ground for stopping being a victim. It's not a pity party victim. It's how much wisdom do you want to live with to basically be successful and prevail over little Amalekites that are all over this world. Kabbalistically, we know that these little damagers exist. It's called Klippa. It's called evil. It's called whatever you want to call it. You're the foreigner. You're the tourist. You're whatever. How much do you want to rise above that? If you really don't care, and you say, I'll pay it, I'll just keep paying for it. Okay, that's your choice. No harm, no foul. I'm not a stickler. I'm not going to fight for every nickel and dime either. It's just not worth it. But there's a certain dignity that people have to have where you're not going to be ripped off. When I went into a yeshiva for the first time in the year 2000, I think 2000, I heard them learning, and I'm a secular Jew, and I don't know from this stuff. I told myself, you belong here, and you're not going to be beat up by these people. And I've lived by that now for over, 16 years. And now who's doing the beating up? So that's a choice I made. And I think everyone has their things that they want to fight on and the things they don't want to fight on. And I might present battles that you don't have, but I guarantee you have battles. And I'm saying don't struggle with them. Don't keep it going. Even in the back of your mind, you can rise above them. And I'll close on this little tangent here, and we'll keep going, that yeshiva is in the Torah books of the yeshiva. Why are you running to the dictionary? Because you're saying, I don't deserve darkness. I deserve light. Why are you running to the Mikros Gedolos? Because I have the right to know what Rashi said in the verse. That's the kind of thing yeshiva trains you. And then you get stamina. And you start to realize it's not even about victim. It's just about, I have the right to be with God. You don't have the right to tell me no. I can do what's supposed to do whenever I want, however I want, and you don't have much to say about it. So, and I kind of on a joking level, I made a Facebook post a little while ago, a couple months ago. What is ger? Ger is the product of a guy having the guts to look up what ger means 25,000 times. That's all it is. I just looked it up 25,000 times and I reported each time what it meant. That's all it is. I could have had a whole thing about the word whatever, bechina. We have a whole movement called the bechina movement. And a bunch of people say, yeah, bechina, I get bechina. They're on Facebook, it's called I get bechina. Right? In fact, we did this. In South Africa, they love Isaiah 56:3. So they don't want to call themselves ger. They now call themselves nilva. And they made hats. I get nilva. I have one. It's an I get Nilva hat. The Nilva Ger, those are attached to Israel. Go ahead.
Okay, so this corresponds to the sense of smell that was talking there, exertion and effort. Taste parallels each one tasting and experiencing the sweetness of the teacher's pleasing words. Touch signifies the hand, as discussed above. This alludes to the expenditures each person has, that he must spend his earnings in order to reach the teacher. That is the sense of touch, the hands, that is the labor of his hands. It follows that here too, as on Rosh Hashanah, the five senses are rectified, and each one illuminates and strengthens the other. There are times when the five senses associated with Rosh Hashanah are weak and are strengthened by these five senses of a teacher with his disciples.
Okay, so that's nice. Is that a nice idea? You're going to go through the holidays and you'll be fine. But what about when you need a munah and it's not holiday time? Rebbe, students, yeshiva, gerim. Do you know what the halachic term for a Baal Tshuva is? Ger. I mean that. In Tractate Bava Metzia, a Baal Tshuva is exactly like a ger. We can say to both the Baal Tshuva and the ger, yesterday you were eating treif. Today you want to learn Torah from me? That's called taunting the ger. The same to the ger, the same to the Baal Tshuva. Ger is not a dogmatic word. It's not a non-Jewish word. It's not a convert word. It's a wisdom word. It's a tool more than anything. So the formula is what you do when it's not holiday time. Our friend the Ramdu on the Parsha, you see me at the wall giving the class on Wednesday nights, hopefully. He said there's two kinds of redemption. There was coming out of Egypt, which we all know and love. But what about when we forget about the miracles in Egypt? There was the desert for 40 years. So when we remember, and remember, the rest of the Chumash is not just Egypt, it's all about the desert. So, but we were commanded all the time. We talk about Egypt more than the desert. So we talk about Egypt, but we're always reading about the desert. Both of those together are sufficient to bring you out of exile. The holidays are sufficient to nurture your soul, but not you're going to run out. And he's saying, don't worry. When you run out, go call Rabbi Katz with his sweet words, according to this. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So too, the other way around. And the concept of tefillin, the seal of holiness, too, is rectified through them, as in the seal of Torah in the hearts of my disciples. This corresponds to what our sages of blessed memory taught. When the rabbis stood up after Rav Huna's discourses, they shook out.
By the way, it's bechina.
Oh.
This is the bechina of what a rabbi said. See, it's a beautiful word, isn't it?
Okay.
It's really a beautiful word, and they just don't get it. I don't know why. I don't know. Keep going.
They shook out Glimpu,
Yeah. Just this part's not so. Just keep going. It's okay.
And the Anani clouds rose so high that they obscured the day.
All right. So hold on. Let me just see where you're at, because we jumped a little bit.
That is the sun.
Let me just see where you got to.
Talking about shaking out their cloaks in the next.
Yeah. So say that part.
In other words, when the disciples would stand up from the shiva of their teacher, Rav Huna, they shook out their cloaks.
Okay, good.
This refers to clothing, which signifies pride, as in God reigns.
All right, hold on one second. Let me just get caught up again. I know basically where you... okay, got it. Go ahead.
He is clothed in grandeur.
Yes. Okay.
That is, they shook
No. Wait. Wait. Go ahead again. I think it's bechina again. So go.
They shook out and removed haughtiness. That is because the yeshiva.
Yeah, so it was bechina. Bechina, he said it backwards. He did. Bechina, the bechina of gaiva. You guys know gaiva? Arrogance, pride. Bechina gaiva is mentioned. All right, this is where she said. Go ahead.
This is because the yeshiva of the teacher with the disciples rectifies the seal of holiness, which is the antithesis of haughtiness, as discussed above.
Yes, that's it. Bechina of Gaiva. There it is. I'm with you. Okay, now go.
And this is Glim-Yihu. The letters that spell Galmai are an acronym for Yud He Vav He.
So that's all added text. He doesn't have this in here at all.
Okay.
So that bothers me a little bit, but that's okay. Go ahead.
Malach, Ge, Ut, Lavesh.
Yeah.
God reigns. He is clothed in grandeur. The concept of haughtiness.
Yeah.
They subdued it.
Wait, so there he got bechina better than usual. He called it the concept of. That's bechina.
Instead of alludes to.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. That therefore it just, what goes into the mind to make it different, all these different things, Because here was good. So this is what makes Hebrew learning easier. The English is only making it harder for everybody. The Hebrew is easier. Go ahead.
They subdued and removed it. And this is, and the clouds rose. This alludes to rectifying the covenant.
This is bechina.
Okay, this is, right. This alludes, bechina. Okay, to rectifying the covenant by removing his flesh becomes stopped up and elevating it to the concept of tefillin, which is intellect, as discussed above. This is the meaning of the clouds rose, as in when the rainbow is
as in bechina. Bechina of.
like it is.
Yeah.
Okay. When the rainbow is in a cloud, which alludes
Bechina.
to rectification of the covenant. A lot of allusion. Thus the letters Anan, cloud, or an acronym for Medeve, Amim, Nes.
Stop. This is brilliant. This is really brilliant. All right, so listen to this. I'm going to repeat it. And this is, cloud is the initial letters, like Ayin, Nun, Nun, Anan, cloud, initial letters, same letters as Nadive, Amim, Ne'esafu. In 2011, I had to wake up at 3 in the morning to teach Ross Bearden. So I would get in trouble if I didn't show up. And I had a roommate with me at that time, the first ger in this version of my life, named Ron Van Arsdale. And he's the one that taught me all my stuff. And he was the local ger in town. And he's the one that opened my eyes to Noahide and the whole thing. The story's on YouTube. And Ron was staying with me when my wife passed on and things, and he was helping me out. And we're going to wake up. See, Ross, you didn't know this. About 2 hours before I would go on to talk to Ross and teach the 34 classes of Shem, Ron and I would go and roll up our sleeves and figure out how are we going to teach these people. Because remember, I didn't know even what ger was so much, this was all new, cutting edge. Meaning, am I a Jew of the chosen people or something, and you guys are the nice people, or the special people, or the interesting people, or what do we call you all, right? Because I'm the chosen people. What are you? So now, Ron was not Jewish. So, Ron, we knew what we wanted to say. It's ger, okay? But we didn't know that. So we had to work it out. Ron, how do we do it? Because remember, the biggest brilliance of this book is it's not offensive. That was like step one, was don't make it offensive. Every other book on Noahide is offensive. I'm sorry. Convert, ger, all these things. So we found this source on our own, that the forefathers were called the men of nobility. So do you remember that back then? One of the first things I taught was the noble people. And I said, that's I don't care if it is or not, that's what it is. This is, if there's the chosen people and the noble people. And I said, if it's good enough for Torah, it's good enough for me. And so, how do I know I was right, though? The very next words in Rebbe Nachman, the noble people, bechinat gerim. You got this? It's the bechina of gerim. How amazing is that? You got this? Everyone, 1 or 2 on that. You get this? Yeah? It's an amazing insight. So now when you start to see the intricacies of text, and this is what I teach in my dinim class, that you should really listen to the dinim class to get this perspective. There's Jewish Torah and halakha, right? We all know that. And there's something called the idolater or the akum. Where do we get the Torah halakha for the akum idolater? He's not written anywhere. He's barely written of in the Torah, i.e., where do we get Noahide law from? Because there's a whole book called the Divine Code, supposedly for the halakha for the Noahide. Well, number one, they didn't get it from the authentic source, not a surprise. From the Talmud, there's something called Jews, and there's something called akum, but there's nothing to derive akum Torah from. Enter the ger. Every time we want to get an akum law, they will bring a ger verse, which has nothing to do with Noahides or non-Jews, anything. It's just a verse. Just a verse. You and the ger, one law, right? We all know that verse. Has nothing to do with non-Jews or Noahides or anything. When they bring it, it allows the contrast. And from that contrast, the rabbis learn the laws. So what we're saying is that gerim here has nothing to do with Jews or non-Jews. It's a thing. It's just how it's the material that it works with. It's the bechina of gerim. Ger Torah has nothing to do with non-Jews. It has nothing to do with Noahides. It's like saying, why does Van Gogh have so much red in his painting? Is it a sign? It's just part of the painting, my friend. Okay, he wore a red shirt that day. I don't know. So gerim and Torah of ger is such an integral part of Torah learning. And you can see it with Rebbe Nachman and the frequency of which it comes. You might as well be missing a chromosome in the Torah and trying to get it that way if you don't have ger. I'm telling you, you don't get anything without ger Torah. Because that's how the Torah is built. That's like remove the letter bet and tell me how much Torah you got. None. Every other letter, you're going to say, what's that letter? Ger is a component of Torah. So frequent and common. I'm telling you, you will always make mistakes if you don't know what that word means and how it's used. If you didn't know gerim here, would you get Rebbe Nachman? The answer is no. No, you wouldn't. You'd be telling me about converts for the last hour. Let's just go ahead and finish a couple more sentences, then we'll take a break. Go ahead.
Okay. This is, in parentheses, the nobles of the nations gathered, which alludes to...
bechina.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, I'm going to read it like it is.
Yeah.
Like it is.
I want you to say it how it is. No, the idiom. Just the idiom. Say it how it is. Just, go ahead.
Bechina or alludes.
Yeah.
Bechina to gerim. For the rectification of gerim, you want me to read it? Gerim?
Gerim. It's not converts.
For the rectification of gerim brings to the rectification of the covenant.
No, not the covenant. How many of you have heard a Breslov rabbi in your life speak about tikkun habris? Raise your hands. No one? Tikkun habris? It's like the essence of Rebbe Nachman's thing. No one's heard of it? What's that? It technically means covenant, but it's like sexual morality. The tikkun of the bris. Right? Staying whole, staying pure, staying holy, staying connected. Right? It's like the motto of Breslov Chassidus. Tikkun habris. Or better yet, how many of you ever heard of Tikkun Klali? The 10 Psalms that they say. Yeah? That's called Tikkun habris. Okay? You do that, you scored high in Rebbe Nachman school. How do you do Tikkun habris? Make gerim. I didn't say it. He said it. By making gerim, you make Tikkun habris. Pretty profound statement, isn't it? Keep going.
That is.
Yeah, it really is that is time. Go ahead.
When his flesh becomes stopped up. is elevated to the level of intellect. The concept of tefillin that cover the mind is created. And this is, they obscured the day, that is the sun. This alludes
Bechina.
bechina,
I told you it comes every other word. I didn't make this up. Every other word, he's saying bechina. Go ahead.
to the concept of tefillin that covers the mind, which corresponds to the sun. This is Moshe, as in Moshe's face
Bechina of the face of Moshe.
is bechina, the face of the sun. So Moshe is synonymous with da'at.
All right, we'll stop there for now. If you guys want to continue, we'll still continue, but take a break. We're going to take a break. So, yeah, what do you think? Different world, isn't it?